All right, so 2004 Infiniti 35, 3.5 V6 front wheel drive model. I'm going to show y'all what it takes to replace the alternator in it. What does it take to get the alternator out? I made a part 1 video showing the part number, but it's right here, so I'll show it again. R111077B. This is the Ultima brand from O'Reilly's. It's about a $200 alternator, and there's your old one sitting next to the new one. The bolt that comes out through the back has a little locking tab right here, and it's a pain in the butt to slide out under the exhaust manifold and get completely out. You'll be right here trying to get it out, and this will be working its way on the back of the exhaust manifold, the front manifold on the front of the engine by the radiator, and you'll be trying to wiggle this and wiggle this to get this to come all the way out so that the alternator can slide out. So be prepared to have fun with that. Getting it back in is gonna probably be just as much fun, if maybe not even more fun. You see this little, I don't know what to call it, like a little tab sticking out? You want to look at this side and see how much of that is sticking out. As you tighten in on the bolt, it'll press it in that way, but keep an eye on that too. Then it'll slide all the way through like so, and then you'll have your nut over here on this side that'll tighten down on it. On the top you have this bracket that will sit here like this, and it has this little bolt from the inside that threads in obviously from this way that way, as you can see, and then this bolt will come in this way. You have this ground wire bolted to that you'll have to release, and that's about it. And this bracket cannot be tightened on now. You have to take it off to have enough room to get the alternator in, and then put it on once it's back in there. Now, as far as the top of the motor goes, normally you don't have to take the radiator out. Why I took the radiator out if normally you don't have to? Well, I took the fan out, as you can see, and I took the radiator out. There's two major reasons. This bracket bolt, the ratchet, right, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, had to go that way. And I didn't want it, when I was trying to crack it free, I didn't want to take the ratchet back this way and bang into the radiator and damage the radiator. So, you know, better safe than sorry. Went ahead and took the fans out. The fans in the way definitely don't give you room to access this. The other reason is the radiator hose on bottom had this clamp facing up. If you had the clamp facing down, you can grab it from the bottom, squeeze from the bottom, and you probably wouldn't have had to mess with the radiator. But even if the clamp was facing down, it was hard to get this guy out without whacking into the radiator. If I would have just removed the fans and the radiator was there, I could have whacked into the radiator. So I'm all about taking shortcuts and taking out as little as possible. You know, I thought about taking it out from the top, but you have your AC condenser line, you have your power steering, cooler lines, the way the motor V's this way, it doesn't leave a lot of room. Oh, excuse me for yawning, it's late. And then you have this other AC line here, and then the motor would have had to be jacked up and try to wiggle it out through there, and it seemed very tight, so I decided to remove the motor mount completely and drop it down from the bottom. The idler pulley had a strip nut Someone wasn't nice to it, stripped it out. It was rusty, crusty, as you can see. So we had to get our strip bolts, 14 mil socket from our strip bolt socket set, and remove that. If you see, I had to remove the lower support bar, and rust across the frame, as you can see. This car has been up north. So that top motor mount I just showed you, plus this bar, and let's see if I can show you this back bar over here from this side. The exhaust is in the way there. I'll come around through here and try to squeeze in. Okay, so there you go. You can see what I did is drop those down to give it some room to sag down. And the best way to go about that is take one bolt all the way out and then put it back in, turn it by hand a couple times to where you feel the threads caught a couple turns and can hold the weight. And then zip the other one out all the way, put it back in by hand, same way. And then you can see the motor sag down this way. The exhaust is still helping hold it, and that support bar is still lined up in the back. It's easier that way because you don't want to take the support bar all the way down. It's going to be hard to line it up and get it back on and all that. So I do have a jack on it with a block of wood. It did slip a little bit, but I can reposition it, no big deal. This is the hole that I snuck the alternator out through. This little hole right here. So as you can see, we removed the radiator hose out of the way. We had to lose coolant. Our AC lines, our power steering line, we just kind of pushed out of the way, and we were able to barely squeeze it out through here. We left the hose attached to the upper inlet pipe. We removed the alternator slide through bolt. See, the alternator will come onto here, and that long bolt will come that way, and the nut will attach here. Here's where your idler pulley will go with that strip nut that I'll be getting another nut for. And like I said, this bolt will have to push out that way, and as you can see, it's going to be wanting to hit the back of this manifold, and you're just going to have to manipulate it that way to be able to pass all the way out. And getting it back in is going to be just as fun because there's not a whole lot of room from the front here to get your hand in here. There's not a whole lot of room, fellas. So it's going to be interesting once the new alternator's in there. I could have removed the AC compressor and push come to shove if I can get that bolt that way, this way. That might be what I end up doing, unbolting this AC compressor and shoving it out and being able to get my hand back in there and push that bolt back this way. If you get into a jam with that, that might be what you do, but that's the hole where it goes, right in between there. So this car also needs a power steering pump. It's leaking. It needs that CV axle. It needs this oil cooler seal. It needs those hoses. It's all wet there. So oil cooler seal, that hose, this hose, power steering pump, and CV axle on both sides. So that's gonna be another day, another dollar, as they say. But this is how you get the alternator out, guys. It's a lot of work. A lot of work. The top alternator bolt goes through there. That bracket I was showing you, the bottom one goes through there. It looks like we got a little bit of leaking going on from that thermostat water inlet. pipe, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and remove it or reseal it. That's your thermostat in there, I believe. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to do that. But yeah, we'll talk to the customer, see if they're willing to pay a little more money to get into that water pipe and fix that up. Maybe put a brand new thermostat or something in there, because as you saw, there's a little bit of leaky coming from the bottom of it already, and you know, that's more work. But yeah, this is gonna be an alternator that, you know, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg to get in and out, because you know, there's just a lot you have to do. Anytime you have to drop the crossbar, the support bar, anytime you have to drop upper motor mounts and drop all this and remove radiator hoses and lose coolant and everything else, like anytime you have to do that much work to get an alternator out, you can expect to be paying. Anytime you're dropping motor mounts, dealing with the rust, I mean, frame is really rotted out. Anytime you're dealing with rust, stripping out bolts and nuts and that manifold, I mean, everything is just trouble all the way around. So anytime you're dealing with stuff like that, you're gonna pay a lot of money just to get an alternator in this thing. Sorry. It is what it is. Don't buy cars from up north that are rusty, crusty, because they're not fun to work on, and mechanics will charge you if you make them do it. Anyways, hope somebody learned something from watching this video. Like I said, this is what it takes to do an alternator on a 2004 I-35. It's pretty nice. If you look at the interior, like, I like these things. I just don't like working on them. Pretty nice interior. They're pretty fancy cars. Heated seats, you know. Not too shabby. Infiniti. They make good products, you know, but I like this car in the rear wheel drive setup, not in the front wheel drive setup. And I mean, the top of the engine needs work too, valve covers, intake, tune up, all that, but you know, what can we do? One thing at a time, right? The struts are real bouncy on this, so you're gonna want to replace those struts. It's really bouncy. So yeah, you'd be putting some work into this, but you know, new alternator was needed. Like, I want to say this is the original alternator. What do you guys think? It's got a number here. It's got a number here. It's hard to read. Maybe it was replaced once a long time ago. I mean, it is a 2004. Yeah, this looks aftermarket. It's been replaced. It's been replaced. I don't see any Denso anywhere on it. This is an aftermarket rebuild, whatever. Reman. Yeah, I don't see no markings on it. No OEM markings is what I'm getting at. So, aftermarket alternator, who knows how long it's been on there, but it's been replaced before. Like I said, this is an 04, and I think the last person that replaced it stripped that bolt out. But yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna ramble. It's late. I'm tired. I'm gonna call it a night with the teardown tonight. Like, tore it all apart. I'm gonna close this hood and go get some rest, because I deserve it. And tomorrow I'll talk to the customer, see what they want to do about that thermostat inlet pipe, see if they want to spend some money on that. If they don't, I'll put it back together, let them know I'm going to charge them a little extra for this alternator because it's a bear. Let them know they got to buy some coolant because we have to drain it out. What else? That's about it. Yeah. That's about it. Anyways, if you're thinking about doing this and you think it's a quick, easy alternator you could do in your driveway, I hope the video convinces you it's not. This is definitely for the more experienced mechanic. If you are going to do it in your driveway, if you're more of a beginner mechanic, you're going to want to pay someone with a little more experience or take it to a shop. Not what we call an easy alternator. I'm not saying it's like super intense difficult, but it's pretty pain in the butt. You're pretty much dropping the motor off its motor mounts, lower crossbar, all that, working in tight spaces, removing the radiator fluid and hoses and everything else. Like, I removed the radiator for safety reasons because, like I said, that top bracket, I didn't want the ratchet to slip and bang into the radiator. Then we got to buy a radiator. So for safety reasons, you're better off removing the radiator. You follow my drift. It's a lot of work to get this alternator out. Anyways, I'm rambling again, so have a good night. I'm tired. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Catch you on the next video.